Hi and welcome or welcome back to Yarn Crafts with Allison. I'm Allison. It's been a long while and I was in a musical. We have moved, my background is different. I've gone back to teaching. I teach dance and I have a lot of finished objects, new cast-ons, and I'm excited to I'm excited to share them with you. So I've got my soda water with lime and mint from my new garden. I have my notes on all my stuff. So, and a shaky camera apparently. Kind of got my phone balanced precariously, so hopefully it's not too shaky for you. But let's go ahead and get started with finished objects. The first finished object is no longer a finished object because the last time we talked, I was on the second sleeve of this Alvar Pullover and I finished it. I finished it in July and it was way too hot to wear, so it sat, and then this week I wore it for the first time. It's October now. We've had a cooler week this week. It was cooler in the mornings, so I threw this on and I just found myself the whole day yanking it down. It was just, I want like 2, maybe 3 more inches of length in the ribbing. So this morning at my crafting group, I undid my bind off. I just did a standard bind off luckily, so it was really easy to just unpick and put back on the needles. And I'm gonna add probably 3 inches of ribbing to the bottom because I think I'm gonna wear this all the time. The sleeves are great. I love the fabric. It just wasn't long enough. You know, it covered everything. I just the feeling of it on my body, it felt like it wanted to be longer. So I decided to go ahead and just do it. I did about 1 inch. This is how far it was before. And I did about this much between picking up the stitches and doing a few more rounds on the ribbing. That was how far I got during my crafting group this morning. So I guess I'll just use up a few more of these little balls. This was reclaimed from a different project that I frogged. It's been in my stash forever, a few years anyway. So it's just 1 by 1 ribbing, and I'm just gonna make it a little longer, and then I imagine this will be like a staple. I just grab it, throw it on. I apologize if you can hear the dog barking, the neighbor's dog. He's very sweet, but he barks at everything. So this was a finished object. It's once again a whip, but I put it with the finished objects because I've talked about it in my last couple podcasts and I really wanted to show it to you first. So I really, really love this. This is the Alvar Pullover by Sari Nordlund. It's knit in Drops Cotton Merino on 3.5 millimeter needles, I think. I tend to be a pretty loose knitter, so I will typically use a smaller needle than what's recommended, like almost always. I have rarely used the recommended needle size. I don't know, something about the way I tension my yarn, it ends up much looser. So I think 4 millimeters were recommended and I used a 3.5. And then for the ribbing, I think this is a 2.25. Yeah, I did a sewn Italian bind off on the cuffs, and I thought about doing that on the body. Frankly, it's just such a big circumference and it wasn't necessary. I just did my bind off with probably a 4 or 4.5 millimeter needle to just make a nice loose bind off, and it worked great. It blocked out beautifully. And I'll probably do the same thing because I don't want to do 45 or 50 inches or whatever this circumference is of a sewn bind off if I don't have to. So that's my Alvar Pullover. will once again be a finished object soon. So, finished object number 1. Finished object number 2. Oh, I didn't pull it out. So much of my stuff is still in boxes. We moved just a few weeks ago and then immediately went on vacation. We had really poor timing with the closing on this new house and our vacation, but it was lovely. We went for a 2-week beach vacation. We had a lovely time. But that means most of our stuff is still in boxes. So I finished the Bright Star baby sweater. I don't think I had even talked about it in my last podcast, but I had posted some shorts about it. So I'll put some footage here. I have lots of footage of that. I'm gonna have a whole video coming out on the process of adapting a 1923 pattern from the Star Needlework Journal. It was like a public domain PDF of this magazine that I found. It was for the musical that I was in back in August. And that was such a fun project to work on. I've never done an antique pattern like that before, and I definitely had to do some work to adapt the pattern that I had. But it turned out so beautifully. I did it on Knit Picks palette in the color Sky, I think that was the name of the color. I did it on 2mm needles, so a size 0, and I just loved it. It was all in panels and then sewn, and I did a little ribbon in the neck to tie it, and oh, I loved it so much. It was so wonderful, and it was really important to the plot of the musical that I was in. It was, a really key element to the story, so it was really fun to be able to make it at all. But then it was really this like puzzling process where I had to kind of piece a lot of stuff together, because those antique patterns tend to be really bare bones patterns. So it was a really fun process to kind of have to piece some of that together for myself and do some detective work and find the pattern to begin with. The show I was in is based in 1923, and this happened to be from 1923. So we had a few options of a pattern we could use, but when we saw that it was from the same year, I was like, oh, well, this is a no-brainer. It's a beautiful pattern, and it's from the right era. So that was a really fun pattern. And they did let me, after the show was over, they did let me keep it, which was so sweet. They did not have to give that back to me. They reimbursed me for the materials and all of that. So it was really sweet of them to let me have that back, because they so did not have to. So that was really wonderful. But I don't have it physically with me, so you'll see all kinds of photos and footage here. The next, my next finished object is this tank top. I finally finished it, and I kind of hate it, to be honest. So I did finally, once I got to the yoke piece, I did have to look up what the name of the pattern was. So it was called the Sorvete top by Filipa Carneiro. And I was knitting this in Yarn Bee Bamboo-tiful in the color sea green. So it's a 50% cotton, 50% viscose from bamboo. So it's kind of similar to like Lion Brand Kobu. It's just the Hobby Lobby version of that yarn. So this is the top, and the front and back are like the shaping for the neck is identical. Well, it's identical in the pattern. I did it exactly to pattern. I put it on. I was so excited. It is intentionally cropped. And I put it on and I went, I hate this. It doesn't fit me. There was no bust shaping or anything, and I am on the busty-ish side. I've breastfed 2 children and all of that, so I'm not small in the chest department, and it needed some shaping. So I decided to unpick the top and, you know, leave the back the same because I didn't need anything changed in the back. And I decided to rework the front. So before it was really just, you know, decreases on both sides until you get to a certain point, and then you're just decreasing for the neckline and leaving the armhole, just letting it go straight up at that point. So what I changed, oh gosh, it's been a few weeks. What did I change? I just brought it back, and the armhole was too close in my armpit. It was like almost cutting in to my arm. And, you know, this edge, this really pretty like eyelet edge was rolling under because it was pulling in weird places because it didn't fit in my bust. So I did some playing with the shaping, and it was like somehow it was too tight here, and it was too low in the front, and it was too wide in the front, so it didn't want to cover my bra. And it was this whole thing. So I played with the shaping a little bit, and it's better. It's wearable. I wore it a couple times on vacation, just threw it on when we were at the house. I think it's still too cropped for my taste, just for what I prefer to wear. Even though I do wear high-waisted bottoms typically, it just didn't fit me the way I wanted it to. So this was kind of a flop. The shaping did fix it, and I'll probably wear it a little bit. Oh, that's what I did. So I did a few more rows of back and forth on the front, because this was in the round up until you split for the arms, and then you just immediately go into the shaping on all 4 triangles. So I went back and forth across the entire front for several more rows, and then started the shaping and did a little bit more of a staggered decrease situation. It helped a little bit. It didn't help a lot. I don't like it. I might wear this like as a pajama shirt or something in the summertime, but I do love the fabric. I love this yarn. I've knit my kids sweaters out of this yarn. I knit myself a tank top to go to a yarn festival this past spring. I do like this yarn a lot, but this top in particular was just a fail. I'm glad to have it off my needles because I cast it on last year on vacation actually, and then it just kind of languished for a long time, and I'm glad it's finished. I'm not gonna wear it a lot. So that's that. Put that over there. What else? Oh, these little mittens. I'll put some footage right here. These little mittens for my son. I did those on vacation. It took me like 3 days to knit the entire pair of mittens. That was the World's Simplest Mittens pattern by Tin Can Knits. I love Tin Can Knits patterns. Whether you're a beginner or not quite a beginner, like their patterns are just so lovely, and their app honestly is really great. So if you don't have their app, download it. They have some free patterns, and then if you purchase other patterns from them, you can download them into the app. And it's really great because you can choose, you know, you can tell it you're going to start a project, and then you'll, you know, select the size and whatever modifications, if you're doing long sleeves or short sleeves or cropped or regular length, and what weight you're knitting at. It's really a lovely, really well thought out app. So highly recommend if you're someone who likes knitting apps and things like that, highly recommend checking that out. So I used their app. I did it actually in the leftover Knit Picks palette that I knit the Bright Star baby sweater out of. I just did it out of this. I held it double, so it's a DK weight mitten. I've never worked with palette before until doing that other sweater, and I really had a nice experience with it. It's 100% merino, and no, it's not merino. Is that Highland? It says Peruvian Highland wool. That sounds right. That sounds right. I forget now. But I really loved it, and I think I have 2 balls of it in here actually. So I might end up making another pair of mittens out of this and giving to a friend that just had a baby. So that's those little mittens. He loved them. I finished them. He wouldn't take them off. So I considered that a win. So that is my last finished object. So now let's move on to whips. So the very first one that I want to talk about is the Hannah cardigan for my daughter. It's this half fisherman's rib. Oh, it's so pretty. I love this. And I'm knitting it out of Knitting for Olive Merino, held double in the color, I think this is called Pink Daisy. This has been a lovely process. I worked on this off and on over the summer. And so I ended up, when I got to the decreases for the sleeve, I got all the way to the first decrease, and then I went to look at the instructions, and I could not make sense of the instructions. But I got to it, and I was like, these instructions make no sense. They're having me knit over my purls and purl over my knits, which doesn't work. I'm gonna mess up my pattern. So I suddenly realized I was supposed to start with a knit on like the beginning of round. When I first picked up the stitches, it should have gone knit, purl all the way around. And I started purl, knit, which shouldn't have been the end of the world if it was regular ribbing. It would have been fine. But you have to do the decreases. You have to do a double decrease and a double decrease. So to make the columns of knits and purls line up. Hi, Editing Allison here. I just wanted to say that I realize I could have just shifted my beginning of round by one stitch, and it probably would have been totally fine. But I also had concerns about my tension possibly changing. So that was the other reason I decided to rip back that sleeve. So all of that to say, I had to rip out that sleeve and start again, which was fine. It was only a few inches. And on vacation, I ended up finishing both sleeves. And I had like this much yarn left, finishing up the sewn bind off on the second sleeve. I should have theoretically had enough yardage to do my button band. I didn't end up having that, so I have to go to my local yarn store and pick up another ball of this just to do the button band, and then I'll probably use the rest of that ball to make mittens for my daughter. She really liked the ones I made for my son. So I finished this on vacation. I was so pleased with it, and I was looking at the front neck shaping, and I was like, what? Something's going on here. Something looks strange. So I looked closer, and then I realized I messed up the shaping. It's not the end of the world, but you see these decreases right here? This beautiful line of decreases. And then do you see on this side where there's no decreases here? Because I did them in the armpit. I did the left side shaping on the left and the right of this sweater. So I just stood there looking at it, just aghast. Like, how did I manage to do that? Months ago when I knit the front of this cardigan. So I'm just gonna leave it. I'm not about to rip out the entire body and go all the way back to knitting the second front. But I don't know. You won't, it's a child's sweater. You're not gonna notice it. Once I put on the button band, no one is ever going to notice. I will probably forget eventually. Not anytime soon, but eventually. It's still perfectly wearable. She's going to love it. And it's gonna have these, I think I've shown these once before, but it's going to have these pink buttons. I've got four of these little pink buttons. When Joann's was closing, I was there looking at buttons, and my daughter saw these and said, Mama, I want those pink love heart buttons, and I want you to put them on a pink sweater for me. So, you know, we did a whole trip to the yarn store, and she got to pick out her pink yarn to go with her pink sweater, or her pink buttons. So once I have a button band on this, when I've acquired more yarn, it will have these little buttons, and then she'll have her little hot pink sweater of her dreams. So that's my Hannah cardigan. It's been a whole saga. I do really love this, and I've never worked with knitting for all of Merino before until working with this. I will definitely be making a sweater for myself or a cardigan out of this yarn. I totally see why people rave about it. It's lovely and cost effective, because sometimes this is not a cheap hobby. I have a couple pairs of socks to share. So the first one is this. There we go. Ooh. My son is making a little noise. I think he's gonna go back to sleep though. I don't think he's like waking up. I think he's just making a little noise. Okay, so these are these fluorescent socks that I showed in my last podcast. I don't think I had even done the heel flap yet. I think I was still working on the leg. So these are, what's going on here? There we go. This is this stripy fluorescent sock. I'm just working on the foot now. This is still the first one. I've been picking this one up off and on, not too intensively, but I like the yarn. I don't usually do socks this tall, but this has been a fun one, and the colors are so vibrant. I mean, they're showing up on camera pretty true to how vibrant they are in real life. Like that pink is crazy. Look at that. So I got this from the yarn festival when I went in May, the Kentucky wool and sheep and wool and fiber, Kentucky Fiber Festival, one of those. It was in Lexington. I had a grand time with my sisters. It was lovely. So that's that sock. And then I have a second pair of socks that I'm working on. That was a regular fingering weight, just vanilla sock. Nothing special to tell about the pattern. This one is for my husband. I have part of a cuff for the second sock. I finished the first one on vacation. It's just a little ribbed sock. The pattern I'm using is Slow Morning DK Socks. And I didn't write down the author of the pattern. I'll insert it here. And this is my first time doing a short row heel, which I actually got to do twice, because the first time I cast on the largest size. These are for my husband, so I cast on the largest size, which was 56 stitches, and I think my gauge is a little bit big. So I finished the heel, I started working on the foot, and it was very apparent to me that it was just going to be too big for him. So I unraveled, I started again. It wasn't that big a deal to just go back, because it's not a very tall sock. So, and it's DK weight. It took me like an afternoon to get back to where I was. So I got extra practice doing this short row heel, and I have to say, I have wanted to try short row heels for a long time and just haven't gotten around to it, and I really enjoyed the process. It was lovely. Now, I did lament to my husband, because I like a heel flap and gusset, which is what I'm doing on these ones, and the magic of turning a heel, I celebrate every time I do a sock. I love doing the heel turn after you've done the heel flap, and you get to turn for the heel before you pick up the gusset. That is my favorite part of knitting socks. I love it so much. My husband makes fun of me because I'm like, oh, I get to turn a heel now. So, so I do miss out on the heel turn on this, but I really enjoyed this short row heel, and I think it's gonna fit like really impeccably. So, Slow Morning DK socks for my husband, and this is also from Passion Yarns from the Fiber Festival. Hold that thought. All right, it's a little bit later. My son ended up not falling back asleep, but he needed to sleep a little longer, so I went in and snuggled with him. Sorry about my shaky camera work. So I just had two more projects to talk about. So one was this Musselburgh hat that I cast on vacation. I went to it's a needlepoint store in Hilton Head, South Carolina, where we vacation, called Needlepoint Junction, and I've never been there before. They have a really small yarn section. I've wanted to go the last couple years and I've never made it out there. So I went there this time and I found this Madeline Tosh, which is another yarn I've never tried before. It's just a fingering, single ply, merino. It might be just merino. I can't remember if there's nylon content in it. I don't think there is. So I just cast on a fingering weight Musselburgh hat, which is you start at the little pinhole cast on and you do your increases, and then you do just a long tube, and then you do decreases, and then it's just a closed tube and it folds in on itself. I really love this pattern. It makes for a really lovely warm hat, but also like once you have a good amount of your yarn going, it like becomes its own like project bag. So I literally will just walk around like this with the yarn inside the hat, and I can just knit like that. And I love this project for like if my kids are outside riding bikes, or if I just have a couple minutes just to knit, you know, but don't have enough time to get into anything, I can work on this. Excuse my messy kitchen. I gotta do some dishes after this. But it's a really great project for on the go. Just I can throw it in my diaper bag and, you know, knit for a minute if I have a little extra time. So that'll be a Musselburgh hat for myself. And then the last thing, this segment is gonna be really shaky and I apologize, but I'm just holding my phone camera. The last thing I wanted to talk about was this. Now this is, I've never done a full-sized cabled project before. This is going to be the pearl sweater. Let's see if I can get this to kind of lay nicely. This is going to be a pearl sweater by Magdalena Parker. I got this yarn at the yarn festival in May. I'll put the name of the vendor up here on the screen, but it's called Sprout DK is the base that it is. It's a DK weight wool. I think it's 10% nylon, 90% merino. And this is gonna be, it's a drop shoulder construction. I've done the back panel, and now I've picked up the stitches to come over the left shoulder. So, but the beautiful thing about this pattern, this stitch pattern, is one half of the cable is stockinette and the other half is seed stitch. So it just makes for this beautiful, beautiful, let me see if I can turn and get some better light. There's a lot of still packed boxes in my kitchen, so I don't want to show you that, but this is gonna be really beautiful. I have 10 balls of this to make this sweater, and it was a little bit of an investment, but the moment I saw this pattern, I said, when she first released it back in the spring, I think, I knew, maybe it was the winter, I don't remember, I knew I wanted to get yarn and make this pattern because it's so beautiful. My gauge is a little bit off. I think the pattern calls for 28 stitches for 4 inches, and I have 24. But I didn't want to go down another needle size. Well, first of all, I'm using the 3.5s, so that's the smallest needle I have on my circulars, my interchangeable circulars. But I really loved the fabric of my swatch for the 3.5s, so I just did the math and figured out I needed to make the size 2 to get the bust circumference that I wanted. Just gonna drop that there. So that is all I had to share today. So I'm gonna end it here. Thank you so much for watching if you made it all the way to the end, and I hope to see you next time. Bye. Ma, 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 ma.